Once upon a time, in a faraway village, there lived a poor woodcutter who had an axe that had been handed down to him from his father. One day, while chopping wood, the axe slipped and fell into a deep and wide river. The woodcutter was very upset because he couldn't retrieve it as it was too heavy. It was the only thing that he had to earn his living with. He stood by the bank of the river and started crying. Suddenly, he heard a voice that said, "Why are you so upset?" The woodcutter wiped his tears and said, "My axe fell into the river and I can't get it out. It's my only source of income, and now I will have to starve." The voice said, "Don't be sad. I can help you get your axe back if you are willing to give me something in return." The woodcutter asked, "What do you want?" The voice said, "I want you to give me whatever comes out of your house at noon tomorrow." The woodcutter agreed without thinking twice. The next day, the woodcutter returned to the river at noon. To his surprise, the water had receded and his axe was lying on the bank. He picked it up and thanked the mysterious voice for its help. Then he went home. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a beautiful woman sitting in a chair. She smiled at him and said, "I am the owner of this house. You forgot to mention your wife's name when you made the deal?" The woodcutter was shocked and said, "I'm sorry, but I had no idea that this house belonged to someone. I would never have made that deal if I knew." The woman said, "Don't worry, I won't take your wife away from you. Instead, I want you to become my husband." The woodcutter was taken aback by her proposal, but he couldn't refuse it because their deal was based on his wife's name. So he reluctantly agreed. That night, the woodcutter slept in his own bed, but the following morning he had to move into the woman's house. The villagers were astonished when they saw the woodcutter entering the palace, because he had become the husband of the beautiful princess. Some people thought that the woodcutter was lucky, but others envied him. They tried to talk to the woodcutter about how lucky he was, but he told them not to disturb him. After a few months, the king became very angry with the woodcutter. He summoned him to the palace and asked why he hadn't produced any children. The woodcutter replied, "Your Majesty, I don't know what to say. I am old, and my wife is also not young anymore." The king was furious and said, "You are useless. Leave my palace right now." The woodcutter left the palace and went to the river. He sat on the bank and started crying. Suddenly, the same voice asked him, "Why are you here again?" The woodcutter explained everything to the voice and then asked, "How can I have children with an old woman like her?" The voice said, "Don't worry, I can help you. But in return, I want you to give me whatever you will bring from the king's palace at noon tomorrow." The woodcutter agreed to the deal. The next day, the woodcutter went to the palace and took some old furniture with him. When he reached the river, the same woman came out of the water and said, "Why did you bring these old things? I wanted something new." The woodcutter replied, "But you asked for whatever I would bring from the palace." The woman said, "Yes, but I didn't ask for old furniture." The woodcutter argued that he had brought exactly what she had asked for, and they started fighting. In the end, the woman took the furniture and disappeared into the river. The woodcutter waited for a long time, but she didn't come out. Then he went home. The king was very happy to see the woodcutter again, and asked him why he hadn't come to the palace all this time. The woodcutter told the king everything that had happened. The king was furious, and immediately went to the river with the woodcutter. They searched for the woman, but she was nowhere to be found. The king asked the woodcutter to live in the palace again, and promised to find the woman and make her an example for others. But despite the king's efforts, the woman was never seen again. The woodcutter stayed in the palace and lived happily ever after,